there a second?
You just unmuted yourself, so we haven't heard anything you've been saying.
Okay, I'm sorry then. So we're approving the March 13th and April 10th minutes. You recall we deferred on the March 13th minutes because there was some confusion over whether we had approved the conservation agent position. We confirmed we had, and I think the issue arose because it had appeared on the agenda twice, and we took one off. John has made a motion to approve the March 13th and April 10th minutes. And I asked if there was a second.
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Mr. Malinowski,
Aye.
Ms. Jones-Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Thorburn. Aye. Chair votes aye. Minutes are approved. Expenditure ledgers in the packet. There's no changes from the last meeting. Moving on to the chair's report, included in the package, just for your information, the annual memo that goes out to managers to get them going on the performance evaluation process. It's a cover memo that goes along with a packet of documents that they have to complete. And the other memo in the packet, as we've discussed previously, we're sending memo to the select board about the need for us to transfer funds from the tuition reimbursement line to the employee development line. As an update, I had actually written that memo some time ago. I'm going to now include the amount, since we now have a total of what we're going to spend. And the total is $7,950. So we actually are only going over the employee development line by $450. Any questions on either of those? Okay.
It's not necessarily a question on the memo, but more from Mark as like when he meets with the department heads, and this goes back to prior years, is making sure there's some substantive professional development in these evaluations, right? I know we've had a lot of discussion around that, is that every single employee has some need for growth development in some area, and just making sure that even if they did have the best possible year, where they should and can focus to continue their career growth. I don't know that has to go necessarily in your memo, Barry, but that might be a message that Mark could carry at a department head meeting.
Okay, that's a good point. Mark is not with us yet, but Vanessa. Oh, yes. Okay.
No, I'm
Mark.
here.
Okay, so you got that message.
I did. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to Assistant Town Administrator's report.
Thank you. In your packet, there is a memo reflecting the resignation of Tim Davis, who has been our recreation director, who's gone to work for the town of Brookline. So wanted to just alert the board of that initially. We're also in the process of interviews for his replacement, getting ready to review that with the interview panel today. And the building commissioner is ongoing. That deadline is actually this week, and our recruitment firm Community Paradigm is working on that to hear more about both of those positions next month.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Vanessa? Hearing and seeing none, we'll move on to old business. So you have two memos in your packet with regard to salary grid implementation. I originally had drafted one memo, and Brian and Mark had persuaded me that it was confusing trying to do both in the same memo. So I created a second memo. And there are a couple of ways to approach this. Brian and I had discussions about different ways to do this. They both, I think Brian will agree, end up in the same place. So the approach I took was the one that's in the memos. But again, these are drafts. I throw them out there for discussion. The idea would be, and they shouldn't each say to all SAP employees. I think they should perhaps say SAP employees. So the employees who are going to get the, I'll call it the regular treatment, that is, they get the 4.5%, then they get placed in the grid step that's closest to but not below. Those people will get the first memo in the packet, and those who fall into the second category who are within the 0.5% would get the second one. So that's the intention here, but I open it up for discussion. John?
I asked Vanessa in regards to the police department. Not the police department, the fire department. With the current hourly rate. And you gave me an hourly rate that is different than what's on Schedule A. And I took that to possibly mean that she was getting a longevity payment in an hourly rate condition.
That's not generally combined with the hourly rate. It's usually a separate payment.
Well, then.
So you're saying that the rate was not within the range for classification?
All right, she was an administrative assistant one at A4, which is 2588. But you gave me a current rate that she's being paid of 2604, which is $400 more.
That is her current rate. We'd have to look at the spreadsheets that cost all this out that Brian manages.
Oh,
Maybe because she was recently changed, right?
Yeah, but that's not going to go into effect until July 1. Oh, no. She was made retroactive. Now I'm trying to remember.
not
No. She was not retroactive. Her change is going into effect July 1. So there shouldn't have been any change, but those don't specifically deal with the memos. Why don't we figure that out offline?
Well, we're talking about implementing, what we're gonna do with it. I'm not focusing on her, but I wonder how many we would, at least I would need when we go to implement each individual on this new grid. What their current hourly rate is, so that we know where to put it on the midpoint. Now, I just happened to, just happened to come up, and I see that that particular individual is more of an hourly rate than what the current grid shows.
We don't have the current grid.
Yes, you do.
No, we don't. There's
not
no
a grid.
We have a range.
A
range.
yeah, Schedule A.
Right, it's a range.
Yes.
There's no specific amount set forth in that range for any particular employee. In the current SAP, the grid's not going into effect until July 1.
Which adds the steps back.
Right.
But if she's an A4,
Right.
it shows on our current Schedule A at 2588.
It doesn't. This current Schedule A just has a range of numbers from point A to point B. Someone can be anywhere in that range. There's no steps currently.
How did you set that?
We always have done it. People get a hiring rate and it goes up
The range.
each year within the range.
Okay.
All right, other questions or comments about the numbers?
I'll make a comment, just, defer to Mark and Brian on how they want to do this. I just think having some open office hours, and I realize your doors are probably always open, but just offering, some dedicated time to make sure every employee understands, the culmination of all this work and how it impacts them individually, I think can go a long way. We could sit here and mark up a memo all day long, and you'd still have some employees that likely have questions. So I think this is a good primer, but I would add in, who and how they should contact, well in advance of July 1st, so that when the first pay cycle comes out, there aren't questions about how it was done. That way, if there are questions that we didn't think about, et cetera, like there's a couple months for the personnel board to address them if there is any clarification needed.
Okay, fair. We do say at the end of both of them to contact the treasurer's office if they have any questions, but do you want us to do more than that? I'm happy to add something.
No, I just, I don't know, bold it. I don't know. I'll leave it to Mark and Brian on how they want to do it, but making sure everyone's aware of where they landed, I think is really important. We have all those charts that we spent countless hours on. I'm sure most of them know, but usually, at least what I have found in my discussions with employees is I may think I understand it for myself, and then someone else asks a question, it makes me think of another question. That's why, again, as long as employees that are watching this video or join at a later date know that they should be reaching out now so that we can resolve any questions, that would be the point of my message.
Okay, but we can certainly, at a minimum, bold the last sentence in both memos so it draws people's attention. I think that makes sense. Okay, other questions, comments? Okay, hearing none, I don't know that we, I guess we should vote to approve the two memos. So there's a record of that with the change that I just mentioned. Is there a motion to approve the two memos in the packet be sent out to the respective employees as appropriate? I'll leave it at that.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second, sorry, I couldn't get to the mute button fast enough.
All right, thank you. Okay, all in favor, Mr. Malinowski,
Aye.
Ms. Jones Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Thorburn.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, those are approved. Thank you. Moving on, I know Michelle and Vanessa and Taylor have been making progress on the tuition reimbursement policy. We don't have one yet, but I will turn it over to who's going to be you or
Sure, I'll start, see if anyone else wants to add any other detail. So we've been continuing to gather information from other communities. We've now got a list of town administrator charter communities. So we're looking at organizations that are most similar to Southborough. We also did go back with our survey out to those communities. We wanted to get a little bit more information about how do they handle professional development? Is that part of a tuition program or is it separate? Is it a department budget or is it something that is a large fund like a warrant article or something to draw on in other communities? So we're in the process of getting a little bit more information about how does professional development work into the tuition reimbursement program. So we can address that in our memo.
okay, any questions?
Yeah, the only other thing I would add as well is that we're also asking if anyone share their policies with us, just so that we have some language and a good sense of the way other municipalities are approaching it. And our offer would be that once we can get some data, we would also maybe summarize that and share it with others. So Vanessa and Taylor have been doing a great job trying to pull all this together. So next meeting, we hopefully will have more significant information.
Yes. Okay, thank you all. Any questions for the team? Hearing none, we will move on to item C, just a recap of what we essentially have done. As I said, we have committed $79.50 for employee development in this fiscal year. Do you want to go through, or do you have?
Just want to report that we had our training with Jill Broman on her workshop Habits to Thrive. That went really well. You know, I think people really enjoyed her talk, and she does a number of other subjects that we got some feedback that it might be nice to sort of build on that with a bit of a series next year. So we hope to continue talking to Jill Broman about that. This week we have the emotional intelligence workshop with Callie Ritter, who's been here before and done a number of trainings for our town employees. She's always very popular. And in early June, we have our anti-harassment workshop with our labor attorney, Keith Federoff.
Okay. Thank you. All right, we're going to jump
Attendance is
around.
Those,
Okay.
sorry. I just want, attendance is looking good and high engagement from the employees.
It is, you know, the first one with Jill Broman was a little bit smaller. We had also planned on working with youth and family on our wellness walks that we're doing on Wednesdays. It was a pretty rainy day, so you know, that was not as many people as planned, but we do know that the June, not the Callie Ritter, but the other two workshops, we should be able to record and offer hybrid. So I think that will help attendance, and people don't all have to be here in person from the other buildings.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. We're going to jump around now. So we're going to do the job descriptions number 3 through 13, and then we're going to just have a quick discussion about calendar. And then we'll do the 2 health positions. Can we get, with regard to job descriptions 3 through 13, can we get the usual assurance that these job descriptions match what was given to the Collins Center? With that, are there any questions about job descriptions 3 through 13? Being none, hearing none. I will entertain a motion to approve job descriptions 3 through 13. And I guess I'll read them. Town accountant, assistant town accountant, IT manager, senior IT specialist, police lieutenant, police dispatcher, business administrator 2 in the police department, business administrator 1 in the BPW, business administrator 1 in fire, recreation director, and the program coordinator in recreation. Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Mr. Malinowski,
Aye.
Ms. Jones-Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Thorburn. Aye. Chair votes aye. Those are approved. Quickly on calendar. I have scheduling issues next month, so I can only do next month's meeting on either June 10th or 11th. And before Jason leaves, I want to see if we can, if one of those days works for people.
You
Michelle,
said
okay.
10, 11?
I'm sorry?
Which dates did you say? Can you repeat
The
those?
10th or 11th.
Yeah, I can do the 10th as long as I have a hard stop at like 10:20. I have a standing meeting at 10:30 on Monday. So
And I'd prefer the 10th as well.
Okay, so we
Right.
can start, why don't we start at 8:30 on the 10th? Does that work,
yes, for me it does.
Yeah,
Jason?
that's fine.
Okay, we'll do 8:30 on the 10th. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right.
Very procedurally, I think there's a 14 on the job. It cuts the next page on the agenda, but
Oh, you're
I think
right.
your motion only included 13. So I just want to make sure we get that one captured.
Yeah, no, I missed that. I think to be clear for the record, we should just do a motion on number 14. So is there a motion to approve the job description for the administrative assistant position in recreation?
So moved.
Okay, second. John seconds. All in favor, Mr. Malinowski,
Aye.
Ms. Jones Johnson,
Aye.
Thorburn,
Aye.
chair votes aye. That's approved. Thank you for catching that, Jason. Appreciate it. All right, Jason, I think we're moving on. So I think we will be bidding you adieu.
Thank you. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, Chelsea,
Yes.
thank you for joining us. Obviously, we have the memo in the packet. I will let you have an opportunity to add anything you would like to add. Beth.
Sure. So I tried to include as much detail for you as I could in the memo. And I just want to make sure that you're aware of who's in the room. So Isabella Caruso is a Northborough employee, and she actually is the interim health director for Northborough because their health director, Kristen Black, left. And but historically, she's run the grant and it continues to do that as a grant coordinator. And she's also our epidemiologist for the collaborative that we're in for the PHE grant. And then Taylor West is here as well from the health department himself. So just want to make sure I introduce them. So thanks for having us this morning. Vanessa, is staff are on by any chance? Just want to make sure I comment. No. Okay. Okay. So I posted a meeting in case we had a quorum, but it doesn't look like we do. So there's been a lot going on in public health since the pandemic. And so the proposal that the Board of Health is bringing forward is adding 2 newly defined positions to the SAP. And essentially what we're doing is we're consolidating our nurse position with our health director position and creating one. I think, since with the pandemic, we kind of swung on the more heavy on the medical side. And, we're a town with 100% septic. We're trying to balance out our department now. So by creating one position, we're freeing up some funding from our current health director position and have been working with the town of Northborough through our public health excellence grant and have been really happy with the services that we've been getting by sharing employees. And so we've been working with Isabella and the town administrator of Northborough to create a shared position for a health agent who would be a registered sanitarian and be able to do all types of inspections for both towns. So we think that we would gain a lot of efficiencies by sharing an employee between both towns because neither town thinks that we need a full-time employee in their own town. So those are the 2 job descriptions that the Board of Health has voted on. And we're asking you to utilize the provision in the SAP section 16E to create that contingent upon town meeting, which it looks like there's going to be a fall town meeting. So that's the proposal.
Okay.
And for you to grade.
Yeah. Okay, I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
First is it your expectation that we would take the nurse position out of the SAP?
Good question. I hadn't thought about that. I think we need to have the process because we currently have an employee in that position right now. So seeing what happens with the health director, filling the health director position, then we could probably take out the nurse position.
Okay, we can hold off. I mean, typically we don't like to have jobs, we don't like to have positions in the SAP where we don't have anyone, but I think given it'll take some time to work this through, it makes sense.
But I just want to make sure we're also remembering the Council on Aging end of that. So,
They're totally, they're separated and distinct,
Okay.
distinct. This is the assistant health director
Okay.
/ nurse position.
I just wanted to clarify that for anyone that's
Yeah.
confused.
Okay, so at the beginning, it says reports to Board of Health, but then later
Mhm.
it says reports to the Commissioner of Health and Human Services.
Okay, which, you're on the health agent one?
No, I'm in the health director. So at
Oh, you're
the
in the-
top,
Okay,
in at the top, it says reports to Board of Health, but then under the supervision section, it says this position reports to the Commissioner of Health and Human Services.
okay, so that should be to the Board of Health. It should
Yeah.
not be challenged, so I just need to update that. Thank you.
Yeah.
What page is that on? I can change it.
It's on the third page, fourth page, I'm sorry,
Thank you.
under supervision received.
So we have a Board of Health meeting next Tuesday, so I'll just have them approve that
Yeah, we
change.
can approve it subject to that
Okay.
change.
That's fine. Thank you for catching that.
And then I had a question that is more relevant when we get to the grading. So in the supervision section, supervision given. So the health director will be supervising the health agent.
Mhm.
Are there any other, I understand you say contracted employees and all, but are there other employees who on a regular basis?
Yeah.
Will be supervised?
It would be the administrative, the business admin would be under this person. As well as like any inspections that are performed by a shared employee. So through the PHE grant, we have like a housing inspector, food inspector. So that supervision is given by the Northborough staff because they're the ones that are the fiscal agents that hold the grant. But there's a dotted line that any work that's done in Southborough is supervised by. So I don't know if you would call that a contracted employee necessarily. But it would be anybody that's a shared employee under the grant. I can,
I
think
think
it's
it's trying to get an idea of what the scope of
Sure.
supervision is. So when we're grading it,
yeah,
that's a factor that we look at. So I'm just trying to understand that.
yeah, so it would be anybody that. And so. Right now, we have one employee in Northborough who does work for us. The work is supervised by Southborough. And then we also have Dennis Costello, who is a longtime contractor that works for us up to 19 hours a week. And he's regularly doing our septic inspection. So we would still keep him on staff as we're kind of going through this transition. So he's a contractor, but he's really in the office 2 days a week. So
All right, that's helpful. Other questions?
What does, we approved a job description for a nurse assistant, health director, outreach coordinator last month?
a few years ago you did, yes.
Well, we have to, at least.
Oh,
we have
sorry.
to go
You had to
through that
update it.
process.
Yeah.
So what happens to this?
Yeah, so that's what Barry's question was are we gonna eliminate that role? Because essentially what we're doing is we're combining that role and a health director role together. So we're trying to gain some efficiencies within the town and be able to reallocate funds to do different things. So I need to have this process flushed through, and the goal would be to eliminate that position.
Stupid question. There enough work? Or too much work in both towns for this one person to do the job?
So we crunched the numbers on the on all sorts of different inspections. So wells, camps, body art institutions, septic inspections, soil testing, new construction, replacement components. And we're actually 50-50 between Northborough and Southborough. And some of the inspections that job description that you just referred to, we're taking those inspections away from the health director position. So it's not a 1-for-1 match on replacing this position. So we think that one person can handle all of these inspections between the two towns. Now, with a crystal, like, nobody knew COVID was coming either. So, I mean, we would rather do it this way than have, like, I don't want to go out and hire my own health agent. I don't think I have enough work to do that. And so we're trying to be creative so that we're saving both towns money and providing the services and hopefully bringing more revenue into the town, right? I mean, the other thing that we've thought of is seeing how this kind of pans out. We're in a collaborative with 2 other towns who could easily pay for services if they are in a pinch and need hours from a health agent. So we're trying to create a way so that, you know, this person will be as busy as we can make them. And we believe that there's enough inspections to be had.
Sorry, Chelsea, just to clarify,
ahead.
did we pivot to the health agent now? Is that, because that's the job description we're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, we're
Okay,
sort
just
of
wanted to
talking
make
about
sure.
both, but
Okay.
sure.
There's also, I would just add, I'm from Northborough. My name's Isabella. There's also support in the grant. So we have a full-time health agent. So they would provide backup or support, and it would be a collaborative team that could, you know, problem solve together, which is important. We don't have that right now.
When would all this take effect?
July
Immediately, as soon as we would have to, at our next meeting, we will have to vote on grading the job. So it couldn't take effect before then, but it would be June 10th as soon as we did it. Now, the way it would work is under 16E, we can approve it subject to approval at the next town meeting. So if there's a fall town meeting, now the risk is obviously the town meeting doesn't approve it and then the position goes away, but that's obviously a risk that's understood and we don't expect it to happen, but
Right. I mean, I would rather this be on the SAP. That's my preference. The Board of Health does have the ability to do contracts for these positions, which is not, I just don't think that's in the best interest of the town or the employees, but that is the fallback if town meeting doesn't approve it. I think this is why we got into this position to begin with, right? We've created all these contracts for public health employees, and it is what it is. Like it was a difficult time when that was done, but I just think we've been more thoughtful about this over the last 3 years, and I think we've had time to react and really come up with a plan that will work best for the residents.
Well, you're being creative and that's what we need.
Thank you.
okay. Michelle, any questions?
Maybe others are more familiar with how this works. I'm just curious, are these positions contingent upon the grant or are they servicing the grant?
So these
Like, in terms
these
of how they're
positions,
funded?
yeah,
I'm
these
sorry.
positions are, no, that's totally fair question. So these positions will be within the town of Southborough's budget and the town of Northborough's budget. So the health director will be, that way that's going to be funded is currently the nurse position funding will cover the health director funding for FY25. And then assuming that band gets to a different band, there's actually the current health director funding line will be able to cover the difference there. And then the rest of the health director that we had budgeted for FY25 can offset the half of the health agent because Northborough is paying for the other half. And then with our current contractor who does septic, Dennis Costello, he's planning on taking more time off than historically. So FY25 is going to look wonky with the budget because it's not going to line up line item by line item. But I believe that we'll have enough money to cover both aspects. The tricky part is though, and this is kind of getting into the finance piece, but is that when Northborough pays us the half of the health agent piece, it goes into the general fund. It doesn't actually go to offset the Board of Health budget. So we'll get the revenue, but it's not going to offset the expense in the budget. So so I've worked with accounting on how we'll kind of figure that out. I mean, that's not really for personnel board, but bottom line is I'm gonna be pretty close to covering it for the FY25, and I just need to fix it for FY26.
Okay, yes, I was just curious about how we sustain it over time, so I just wanted to have some clarity around. Next year
Yeah.
sounds like it will be a little wonky, but then after that,
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that we were not hiring roles that really we didn't have sustainable funding over time to keep them in place.
I totally agree with you, and that's really why we're looking to do it this way, so that it is sustainable over time and that it makes sense, so that we have that balance within the health department. And I hope, and the goal is that we're providing a better service for the residents, for both towns actually, and continue to work collaboratively.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, good. All right, then I would entertain a motion to approve the health director position with the revision that we discussed, and the health agent position pursuant to section 16E of the SAP. Oh, is there a second?
Second,
All in favor, Ms. Jones Johnson,
aye.
Mr. Thorburn,
Aye.
chair votes aye, they are approved.
Thank you.
And we will see you next month.
Okay. That's good.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, is there any other business to come before the board today? Or public comment? Okay, we've done the board calendar. I think we are done. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, Ms. Jones Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Thorburn,
Aye.
chair votes aye. We are adjourned. Thank you all.